Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. So a lot of people say that the Bible says money is evil, and I tend to, I think it's wrong to have that designation, because since the Bible was written, there have been inventions that further evolve society in positive ways. And one of the most famous quotes out of the Bible that talks about evil. I mean, Jesus has lots of teachings about money and the rich man and all this, the needle, which sort of says, hey, having money, it might not get you to heaven, might hurt you from getting to heaven. One of the most popular phrases in the Bible is from James 2:6. And it says, "But ye have despised the poor. Do not rich men oppress you and draw you before the judgment seats?" So what that indicates is that why would you like rich people? Why support rich people? And there's a moral conduct to despising rich people. And if you want to have a good society, you should not have a society of rich people. You should give away all your possessions. I think Jesus said that many times in many different ways. Don't get hung up on material wealth. You can't take it to heaven. And so why fight for it in a material existence? Why fight for a material world? And then by that definition, doesn't that mean that America is an immoral nation? So what you see going on with this is the way the left has positioned itself around the world, and different cultures that are jealous of the creation of America. They have sought to hijack our own Western civilization by turning words and playing with words and playing on our fears, our insecurities, to their advantage. And that goes with being a rich nation, the richest nation, and having a high standard of living, and to make you feel guilty about it, just like they do with the whole racism thing and everything. They can try to play some kind of game, a psychological game, to get you to feel insecure on your position, so they can manipulate you and destroy what it is that you value. So before I say what I'm going to say, I'll say there's different kinds of money out there. There's different kinds of wealth out there. My daughter was telling me a story this past weekend about this person she knows that has a Lamborghini, lives in Mason, a person she's had to interact with. And the homes in the neighborhood that this kid's from is are all $1 million homes, at least $1 million in value. And he drives to a postal area to drop off packages quite often. And when he does, he drives his Lamborghini up and he parks, makes sure that everybody sees that he's there. And he opens the door and leaves the car running, radio playing while he goes in and does his thing. It disrupts everybody around him. And it's very, very arrogant, and people genuinely get very mad at him. And I would say that when you read about biblical text and Bible and the rich and how bad the rich are, I think you're seeing characters like that, and that's what they're talking about. And there's a lot of people like that who are lacking other elements of their lives, other development, and they try to mask that with ostentatious displays of wealth. It's a way to mask all the bad things you've done in life, and you hope that people don't notice by noticing you have a new car or a new lawnmower or a nice big house, and that if you aren't a very good person in all the other ways, that people might look and say, wow, you have great things and you're a nice person. And it's a way to mask that you're not so good. And I think wealthy people have sought wealth to cover up their own inadequacies from the beginning of time. In the Bible, there was no other opportunity but in the biblical times, but to kind of suck up to a regional governor or to play some game so you could, in a social context. You had to kind of do some bootlicking in order to even have a store, because you had tyrannical governments. So if you wanted to have power, you had to kind of carry up to people who had it themselves. And then to do that, you have to commit vile acts of evil against your society in order to be able to own and operate a store or be a merchant, because you weren't free to just own and operate your own stuff. Now, the whole purpose of the United States and forming the United States was to destroy that notion. So if you wanted to work hard and you want to start a store, you were free to do so. You didn't have to know somebody powerful and wealthy in order to have a shot to be a a vendor or a politician. You could just, whatever your initiative drove you to, you could then do it. And that's a different kind of wealth creation that did not exist in biblical times. So if the Bible was written today with a modern context of wealth generation and what's the value of money, I would say that the kind of wealth creation that was created in the United States was a way to measure morality. And not that everybody who has money is a moral character, but you tend to, in a free society where people can do things by choice, not by obligation to some tyrannical governor or overlord from a regional context or a state context, because you can associate with other people, wealthy people, people of value, people of celebrity, by the nature of a free society that's open to everyone who wants to work and get it. To the most part, that's the way it is. The Lamborghini situation is, this is a young person who has kind of bootlicked their way into a corporate job, and they've done all the things that society told them to do, and the display of wealth in that case is saying, look, I was a good boy, and I'm being compensated for my bending the knee to the system. And it's very much a Judas complex, where Judas would sell out Jesus for some simple coins that the institutions at the time wanted to see a radical free thinker knocked down and destroyed, and so they don't have to deal with the competitive nature of what he was teaching. And there's always people who are willing to compromise themselves for a few dollars. But that's a moral measure, and without the money, you have no measure to evoke that behavior for people to observe. So the morality of money, I think, especially in the context of American culture, which was developed off Scripture as a solution to a lot of the problems that could be identified. The founding fathers of the United States looked and said, you know, there's a way to make a more moral society by allowing people the freedom of choice, and then therefore wealth generation comes from choice and the morality of the value that it is to the public. And once you've established that, now you've changed the whole nature of the value. And I think it dismisses the accusations that America is a immoral nation because it's wealthy. You take the biblical context and assume that it's done at a time when you didn't have a free society that decided who made money and who didn't. You made money because you were allowed to operate a street vendor, or to be somebody of some position of power where you could acquire wealth because there was no other option. And you obtain that power by sucking up to powers above you. And that often would mean immoral conduct. But when a society or an economy is built off free choice, and people value what you produce, they value the company you are, then you have a totally different context to wealth creation. And this is the lesson that all these corporations that have wrapped themselves up, got wrapped around the axle on this World Economic Forum strategy, the desecrated Davos people, when they think that because they have a corporation and people value their product more than they value the integrity of the choice, if you introduce choice, then the entire model blows up and they don't have anything to stand on. And which is what ultimately is going to fail with them, because unless they dominate every sector of the economy, which are trying to take it back to the biblical times. And most of the world doesn't function the way the United States does, where anybody who has a new, fresh idea can invent something or make something or start a new store or become a celebrity based on the value of what it is they're producing for the public. And in that way, the money becomes a measure of the people's value for that person or that idea. And the more money you make, you could be said, the more moral and valuable it is to society. And then when it strays away from that path and it makes assumptions that people are going to go and consume that product because there's no other choice, because they're part of the rigged system, now you have the immorality of money, and that's where things get corrupt, and we call it bad, negative, and evil. And then in that context, what Jesus and everybody in the biblical context, what they said about wealth creation and money is absolutely true. But in a society where free choice is driving the economic value, it's quite the opposite. Money then becomes the measure of morality, and the value to society, which then ultimately helps everybody see clearly what the good and the bad behavior in any kind of civilization is clearly by the consumption of goods and services. And the value for those goods are then in the category of their own in a unique way that the United States, only in the United States, was able to utilize. And the rest of the world would do well to follow. And I think in the future, if more people follow the United States capitalist model, that's actually the morality of capitalism, then the world will be a whole lot better off. But if you take the capitalist model of America and try to, and then if people who don't know any better, try to apply it to the biblical scourge against wealth, well, you're talking about old style wealth, pre-United States creation, pre-capitalism. You're talking about crony capitalism, where you have to smooze to win anything, and in the process of smoozing, you commit great evils. And then the people who then acquire a lot of wealth would then be looked at and said, oh, that person's not a very moral person. Just like in the context I said of the kid with the Lamborghini. That kid didn't go and do something great and beneficial for all of humanity to benefit from. He just simply smoozed his way, and the Lamborghini was his evidence that, hey, I did everything everybody told me, aren't I a good boy? And that's essentially what he's advertising. And that, in the biblical context, is considered, or would be, immoral. Bad conduct, improper behavior that indicates not a very moral person. But when you have a free society full of choice and people gain wealth under that kind of system, well, now you see that you've served the people in the way that they voted with their dollars, and the money then becomes a measure of goodness, and in a way that never was achievable at any other point in history until the creation of the United States, which then sort of redefines the entire synthesis of the value system regarding wealth and money. Money then becomes a very valued measure, and you can determine its worth socially based on who has it and who doesn't. And that's a good thing. So just being poor doesn't mean that you're a victim. Being poor in a society like that means you're not participating. And so all the definitions that traditionally are applied to show evil towards wealth creation, so that governments can then control the mass population based on those old, outdated definitions, America has invented something new, and the world would be better if it followed the morality of capitalism, and everybody would be a lot better off. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. And remember the morality of money. It's a good thing. And see you later.